Imagine traveling from Los Angeles to San Francisco in 30 minutes. No traffic, no delays. That's the dream Elon Musk promised with Hyperloop. Yet, over a decade later, Hyperloop is nowhere close to reality, raising the question, is this Musk's worst business idea? Let's rewind to 2013, the year when Elon Musk dropped another one of his futuristic ideas on us. We'd already gotten used to his electric cars and rockets, so when he introduced Hyperloop, we weren't exactly surprised, but it still sounded a little, well, out there. The concept? Musk's goal was to construct a massive tube through which pods, which are essentially futuristic space buses, would travel at speeds around 700 miles per hour, and maybe even faster. Imagine traveling from LA to San Francisco in less time than it takes to watch an episode of Friends. That was the promise. It would be cheap, fast, and environmentally friendly. No airports, no traffic, no sitting next to that one person who hogs the armrest. Musk said the Hyperloop would run on renewable energy. Solar panels along the tube would generate electricity. The whole thing would be as green as a Tesla and as fast as a bullet. Sounds pretty cool, right? Well, that's what we all thought back then. He made it sound like something straight out of the Jetsons. But in typical Elon fashion, he didn't really want to build it himself. He was busy enough with Tesla and SpaceX, so he threw the idea out there for anyone who wanted to make it a reality. And, sure enough, a few companies jumped on board. We had Virgin Hyperloop, Hyperloop TT, and even Musk's own Boring Company getting involved in tests. But here's where things get tricky. Fast forward to today. We're still waiting for someone to ride in one of those shiny pods. Yep, that dream of a 30-minute ride from LA to San Francisco, it's still just that, a dream. After more than a decade, we're nowhere near having a working Hyperloop system. In fact, we might even be further away than when we started. So what happened? For starters, building a vacuum-sealed tube that stretches for hundreds of miles turned out to be, well, a lot harder than it sounds. Keeping the tube almost completely free of air is absolutely essential for Hyperloop to work, but maintaining that vacuum on such a large scale is incredibly difficult. Even a tiny leak would cause huge problems, and over hundreds of miles, there are bound to be leaks. Imagine trying to keep a balloon inflated for a year. It's just not going to happen. Then there's the issue of speed. To reach those 700 miles per hour speeds, you need a crazy amount of energy. And even though Musk said the system would run on solar power, the actual energy demands would probably be way higher than what solar panels can provide. Not to mention, when you're moving that fast, things start to heat up. A lot. So they'd also need some pretty intense cooling systems just to keep things from melting down. And let's talk about human safety for a second. You're flying through a tube at breakneck speed, and if anything goes wrong, like, say, a power failure, you'd need a way to stop those pods safely without turning everyone inside into pancake batter. Yeah, no one's really figured that one out yet. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, money. When Musk first threw out the Hyperloop idea, he estimated it would cost around $6 billion to build a route from LA to San Francisco. Then, there are all the hidden costs Musk didn't mention, like building the vacuum system, the cooling systems, safety protocols, and the inevitable maintenance. Keeping a giant tube running 24/7 without issues is going to cost big bucks. Plus, there's the possibility of massive cost overruns, delays, and lawsuits, just like with every major infrastructure project. And let's not forget about insurance. If you're going to build a system that flies people through a tube at supersonic speeds, you can bet insurance companies will want a piece of that action. One minor accident could cost millions in lawsuits. So yeah, that's another huge expense waiting to happen. At the time, that sounded like a steal, especially when you compare it to California's high-speed rail project, which is costing way more. But that $6 billion estimate was about as realistic as winning the lottery 5 times in a row. Once experts started crunching the numbers, the actual cost of building a full-scale Hyperloop system started looking a lot scarier. A 2021 report estimated that the total cost could be closer to $121 billion. Yes, that's a billion with a B. Where's all that extra money going, you ask? Well, first off, land doesn't come cheap, especially in California. Hyperloop would need a straight shot for the pods to travel at top speed, which means it would cut through cities, private property, and possibly even nature reserves. And good luck getting people to sell their land or approve tunneling under their homes without charging an arm and a leg. While Hyperloop struggles to get off the ground, literally, other countries have been moving full speed ahead with their own transportation solutions. China, for example, has already built the world's largest high-speed rail network, and their trains are zooming along at 267 miles per hour. Sure, it's not as fast as Hyperloop was supposed to be, but here's the difference. These trains actually work, and they've been working for years. No one's waiting around for the magic solution in China. They've already got it. Japan, too, has been rocking its bullet trains since the 1960s. The Shinkansen has carried billions of passengers over the years, and they've done it with an impeccable safety record. And while Japan is experimenting with maglev trains that go up to 373 miles per hour, they're also sticking with what works. You don't mess with a good thing, right? And that's the kicker. We already have functioning, reliable, high-speed rail systems. Sure, they're not as flashy as Musk's Hyperloop, but they get the job done. In fact, they're a lot more practical because they run on existing infrastructure and don't require building an entirely new system from scratch. And did I mention electric planes? Yeah, those are on the rise too. Companies like Aviation and Lilium are working on electric planes, which could be the next big thing for short-haul travel. You get all the speed of flying without the environmental guilt. Rather than excavating tunnels and constructing vacuum tubes across the country, electric aviation is already gaining traction, and it appears to be a solution that is not only simpler, but also more cost-effective. Now, even if we ignore all the technical and financial headaches, there's another massive roadblock: government regulations. Yeah, no one likes talking about it, but for something like Hyperloop to actually happen, it would need to pass all kinds of safety tests, inspections, and approvals. And, spoiler alert, this could take years, maybe even decades. The problem is that no one really knows how to regulate Hyperloop because it's so different from anything that's been built before. It's not a train, it's not a plane, it's not a car, it's something totally new. And whenever something new comes along, it means lots of paperwork, testing, and rulemaking. Imagine trying to convince regulators that flying through a tube at 700 miles per hour is safe. You'd have to do endless rounds of testing, build prototypes, and probably even face lawsuits from environmental groups or communities that don't want a giant tube going through their backyard. Just getting the necessary permits could take forever. And then there's the whole "what if something goes wrong" scenario. Governments are going to want guarantees that this thing won't turn into a disaster if there's a power outage, a leak, or an earthquake. And let's be real, regulators aren't going to rush this process. The stakes are too high. Virgin Hyperloop, one of the main companies that took up the Hyperloop challenge, has already shifted focus. They're not even trying to build a passenger system anymore. They've turned their attention to freight transport instead. Basically, they figured out it's easier to move boxes than people. And if even they don't think a passenger Hyperloop is going to happen soon, that tells you something. So, is Hyperloop Elon's worst idea? Look, Elon Musk is a smart guy. He's pulled off some incredible things: Tesla, SpaceX, and even launching a car into space just because he could. But Hyperloop? It might just be his biggest swing and miss. The idea was bold, sure, but between the ridiculous cost estimates, the insane engineering challenges, the huge safety concerns, and the complete lack of government support, it's hard to see how Hyperloop ever becomes a reality. Right now, it's looking more like a billionaire's vanity project than the future of transportation. It shows that even visionaries cannot always succeed. And while Musk has changed the world with electric cars and private space travel, the Hyperloop may go down as one of those what if ideas that never made it off the drawing board. So, is Hyperloop Musk's worst business idea? Well, if we're judging by results, it might be, because at the end of the day, no one's riding in that 30-minute tube anytime soon, And if you need to get from LA to San Francisco fast, you're still better off hopping on a plane. End.